Hello and welcome to Chris TV. My name is Jason J. Rock Houston, and we got Salem's Childe Bassist, James Gates. Welcome to the show, James. How you doing?
Hey, thank you very much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. Now, as people can see in the background there, that's the album cover to the new record you guys just put out, Unbound. Let's talk about that because I love the album cover. And it's such a metal thing. Flames and chains. Talk about who designed that and a little about what it means.
This album cover was actually designed by our good friend Bob Pelgin. He's a tattoo artist here locally.
Love that.
He's done a lot of work on Rob. He's done a lot of work on my wife.
Oh, cool.
As a matter of fact, he's been the only tattoo artist I've gone to. So really kind of tight knit with this guy, and we've always really been a big fan of his art, and we thought this was a great
Yeah, man,
opportunity
how
to.
cool would that be if people, once people hear what that's that's a tattoo artist, and you start seeing people get that tattooed out. Cool, that'd be your album cover or logo, tattooed on somebody.
I think one of us probably ought to go out and run out and get one of those first, right?
Great advertising, right? Yeah.
That's right.
But I mean, you see that you've seen that happen over our lifetimes. Growing up, you see people like get Motley Crue or Black Sabbath tattoos and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know if you've ever encountered that anybody had your band's name on it, but how cool would that be?
Uh, that would blow me away if that were to happen. Now, I've seen that happen for a few friends' bands or whatnot, but if that's happened for any of my bands, I don't know about it. But if somebody's got one of my old bands tattooed on them, or Salem's Child tattooed on them, send me a picture. We will.
That's a major. That's like that's a number one fan right there. Something that they had your name branded on them.
Absolutely.
And
Now
let's
I've
talk.
I've I've got an idea to finish out a sleeve with all of the logos of the bands that I've been in over the
Oh,
years, kind of with some kind of background involved
wow,
in
that's
there.
like really telling your life story right there. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it is that's kind of what it's all about, right?
Yeah, and yeah, it really is. You're telling your story. And let me ask you, because how involved are you, James, with the songwriting?
Well, historically throughout the band, I've been very, very deeply involved with it, and this cycle has really just been kind of different in the way that we've approached everything.
Okay.
Um, we approach it from a standpoint of we kind of demoed everything out first this time around, and we started from a standpoint of working with like 23, 24 different demos.
Oh,
And
wow.
of course, you've talked to Rob, so I mean, you've probably gathered from him that he's a pretty prolific songwriter. I mean, he's
Sure.
got, he's the kind of guy who hears music in its entirety
Yeah,
when
yeah.
he's listening. Whereas, I'm kind of more of a riff guy. I'll sit there and I'll mess around with the riff. I'm like, that's really cool. And the nice thing about, doing that from a bass playing standpoint is, you find a riff or a pattern or something like that that you think is really cool, man, just stick that thing in your toolbox because you can bring that out five or six different ways and really apply that pattern or that technique to something and really make it sound cool. But the trick is really kind of knowing when that moment strikes.
Sure. Now,
And
being a
so
bassist,
this time,
yeah,
I'm
go ahead.
sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So this time around, Rob had created a lot of this demo work that was more or less entire songs in their in a almost completed state. And really, what they needed is they just needed those little extra touches and things like that. And of course Johnny to come in and just lay his vocals on it, which to me is like a world of improvement. Just the way that he really stepped up with this release was just amazing. But yeah, it was really a completely different process this time around.
Yeah, I was curious as far as your bass playing. What I was going to ask is, do you play like a typical bass player? You play like a guitar player? There's kind of two methods. People either play with their fingers or they play with the pick. What's your approach?
Well, I mean, I played most of the Salem's Child music with a pick. I originally started with the band as a rhythm guitar player, so I guess all of the cliches apply. Failed rhythm guitar player picks up the bass, uh, but uh, but no, I was really comfortable as a rhythm guitar player, as kind of the chord guy, really just kind of filling out that part of the music. And so I'd always really kind of connected with the rhythm section of the band. And in one of the changes within the band over the course of, probably coming up on 30 years now. Crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. But over the life of the band, I eventually moved into the bass player position. And when I did, I it was probably the fifth instrument that I had learned in my lifetime. So I went in knowing that I kind of needed to approach it from a walk, don't run standpoint. So what I did was is I picked some what I thought at the time was some incredibly difficult bass lines, which was like the first three Tool albums, and basically learned to play those on bass.
Wow.
And then I was like, okay, now I'm a bass player. And I approached a lot of the earlier Salem's Child stuff kind of from that standpoint.
Yeah, there is that kind of that I think false philosophy, like you say, that failed guitar player moves to the bass. But in your case, was it more of the position came available and it's something I want to try, or is it something you always wanted to do?
There was a vacancy that we couldn't fill,
Okay, there you
and
go.
so somebody had to take the hit. So I kind of moved into the slot, but really it was like stepping into a pair of pants that finally fit for
Yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah. And not to harp
You
on it,
know,
James, but I think it's also interesting to my mind. A guy that can play, five instruments. You're talking to a guy that can't even play one. So I got a real appreciation for what you do. And I think being able to play five instruments and being involved with the songwriting, you're very much involved with the music and the band and what you do. And I think it gives you a better understanding being able to play five instruments. Let's say what all the other guys in the band are doing.
oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, if it, it's one thing to stand in the middle of the room and look at the drummer and you're trying to talk drummer speak, man. Like I really want you to do like the boom baka 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 baka, through this
Yeah,
part, and instead you can say, hey, just break this up. It's a 2/3 section here that moves into like a 4/4 and
yeah,
then
yeah.
onto this, and you can kind of speak their language
Yeah, and
at that point in
you
time.
were the
Yeah.
rhythm guitar players, you said, but and rhythm is something you said you're always kind of into. So, do you find yourself locking in more with the drummer than ever before, and you feel like, hey, I'm really part of that rhythm sound now?
Absolutely. And really, this album has been even more that way than we have in the past. Because in the past, like Scott, our drummer, and I, we share a couple of influences that the other guys in the band don't really necessarily share as prominently
Sure.
as we do. Like, we're big like Fates Warning fans and Dream Theater guys and all of like that prog, kind of
Yeah.
very very uh, highly musical uh, approach. And so in some of our earlier releases, Scott and I kind of locked in there.
Okay.
But obviously with prog, the drums doing, this polyrhythm over here, and the bass is kind of over here doing something
Sure.
else. And whereas with this batch of songs, I feel like I'm kind of handcuffed in the most pleasant way possible
Yeah.
to Scott's kick drum, and just really just kind of riding that and making that booming sound.
Yeah.
That's kind of where that's at this go round.
And
Who
what's
knows
it
where
like
we'll
to
be
be in a
next time.
band with a guy like when you are the rhythm guitarist, that can play those flashy leads like Rob Salem? Did you feel competition, or were you guys kind of feeding off of one another?
There can be a sense of competition, but I think that can be good,
Yeah, yeah,
because over the years I think Rob and I have pushed ourselves or pushed each other really
yeah.
in various different ways to grow and evolve as musicians. And even during the period of time that we weren't playing together, there was about 8 9 years
Oh,
there
wow.
in the mid 2000s that we weren't really playing together. uh, and I think even then I was kind of measuring myself against
Okay,
where
okay.
he
Makes
was,
sense. Yeah, and so when you guys went 8 or 9 years without playing together, what was that first show back like together? I'd imagine it's a combination of like the old diehard fans coming back, to see the band again, and then you get a whole bunch of new ones as well.
We had a really unique experience, and what it was supposed to be was, let's see, it was back in 2014, I think it was September of 2014, I want to say. Uh, Rob kind of got a hold of all of us that were still together in kind of the
Yeah.
last round of the band in 2004. And he said, it's been 10 years. Let's do a show.
Yeah.
And we were like, okay, why not? So we got together and we rehearsed for, like 2 or 3 times over the course of a month. And everybody was kind of in their own project. So we thought, well, wouldn't it be great if we got all of those projects together and just did a show with everybody kind of pulling double duty, and then
Wow.
Salem's Child capping off the night.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. And it was really kind of supposed to be just that. And then for about 2 years after that, Rob and I just really kind of opened up the lines of communication again. And we're like, wouldn't it be great if we took, 4 or 5 of these old songs that we never really gave the appropriate treatment to, and like re-record them and put them back out, maybe with, 2 or 3,
Yeah.
new ones. And we grabbed Scott, and that was a guy that I had played a few shows with. I shouldn't say a few shows. I played with him for like 3 years in a band
Okay.
called Shunned out of Fort Wayne. So we did quite a number of shows when they were doing their reunion.
Yeah.
Their bass player couldn't join them for that, so I kind of jumped in because we had known them
Okay.
for a long time, and so I ended up playing with him for a while. And he had actually done some demo work with Rob in that span of time, so
Wow.
it was kind of like destined that the three of us at least would kind of get together.
Yeah.
And we grabbed a guy who had filled in on vocals back in the mid '90s for us, and we recorded like a 5 song EP,
Yeah.
and went out and we decided we were going to play a few shows, and a few shows became a few more shows,
Wow.
became a few more shows. And then we decided that we were going to write a whole album of new songs that became Sin.
Okay.
uh, and once Pavement picked it up, off we go, right?
Isn't funny Sin and then this new album Unbound, one word title. That's pretty cool.
Well, the sin that saves you was the title of the
Oh,
other
okay.
one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess after a while you just kind of shorten it, right?
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah. Makes sense. Now let's talk about the new album. Now, one song I really loved. I loved all the songs, but what kind of really stood out to me was called the Reap Name, featuring Jeff Rodriguez. Talk a little bit about the song and who's Jeff Rodriguez for people that.
Well, Joe is the lead singer for
Go.
Pissing Razors,
Okay.
and Joe and Johnny have known each other for years and years.
Okay.
They were in the Navy together, so that's kind of where they met and kind of started collaborating. And so getting him involved was something of Johnny's idea. And obviously kind of a couple old friends chat over the phone, and suddenly it's on, right? And a few weeks later we're sharing files and trying to get all that worked out. And we've got this guy that we've all been listening to
Huh.
and they're getting ready to do their 30-year anniversary tour.
Wow. How cool is
They're
that?
going to do a week of dates in Texas and Oklahoma, and we're going to join them for that. uh, but some guys that we've been listening to for almost 30 years, right?
Yeah.
And we've got his voice on our album. How cool is that?
Yeah.
And it wasn't one of those where you have to hire out, or you're paying some guy or whatnot to do a thing. He's doing his buddy a favor, right? He's going to put his vocals on this album. And then just kind of kicks it up, and he comes
Yeah.
up and he shoots the music video with
Wow.
us. And we end up doing like the final production of the song, with him
Yeah.
there, and adding some gang vocals and things like that to some of the other tunes on the album. It was just a really, really great
But how
experience,
cool
a
is that?
lot of
Because
fun.
like I'll be honest, I didn't know who Joe Rodriguez was. That's why I asked. But how cool would it be if people check out the video and they see that who's Joe Rodriguez? They find out, then they because he played on your song, they go check his band out or they go buy his album.
See, I think that would be like the coolest story in the world. Like
Yeah,
that's the whole reverse of how we all kind of envisioned this thing working.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and also Requiem. That's another great song I loved on the new album.
Well, to be honest with you, I think collectively that's the one that we all agree on is like in our top, three,
Real
songs
heavy,
on the album.
kind of metal. I mean, it's all heavy. It's all heavy, no doubt about it. Progressive metal, but like what's interesting about Salem's Child, which I really dig about what bands like you guys do, is not only do you continue to put out new music, that's why you're in this, of course, but there are bands that get to this point who are like, you know what? Nobody's buying CDs anymore. Why are we going to bother writing any new songs? And you could maybe do that, but I thank God that you don't. And what's interesting is when you listen to a band, like I was listening to the album prepping for interview day, and I'm thinking, who do these guys sound like? And honestly, I can't say like you're trying to be the next Metallica or anything. You got your own unique sound, and I don't know if that's something you set out to do, but I don't even really hear any of your influences coming out, which I think is a hard thing for any band to kind of do. But I think you guys accomplished that.
And I think that's probably one of the highest compliments that I could ever receive, or
Yeah,
that we could ever receive.
yeah,
We've had guys kind of tell us in the past that I can hear your influences or whatnot, but you don't sound like any of them
yeah,
in
yeah,
the
yeah.
same kind of breath. And I think yeah, I think if you're really trying to be authentically true to yourself, and that's going to come through in your music. If you're really trying to be authentic, then you're not going to sound like anybody else
Yeah, yeah.
necessarily.
And I
You
think in
know,
listening to the album too, like one thing that really stood out to me is like it does have that authentic sound, like you're saying, James. I mean, in the sense that like yeah, these guys don't really sound like they're not trying to be anybody else. They're just kind of trying to be what they are, who they are, and that comes out. And I think that's part of the reason the songwriting is so strong through with this band.
man, I really appreciate that. I mean, that that is honestly, one of the goals of the band is to, just really, kind of present something that is lasting and that has artistic value, but that is truly and authentically us.
And
I
that's
think at
why I
the end of
think
the
you
day,
guys landed with a great little record label, like Pavement Entertainment. And I bring that up because, again, the music industry being so different today, not everybody even has a record label anymore. And so to be signed to any label, I think that says something too about the band that, your music must be worth something for somebody to, sign you to the label. They've got such a great roster of artists. I mean, everybody from, Puddled Mud to you guys. I just interviewed this other guy, Drew Cagle. It's kind of more
oh
of a
yeah.
classic rock type of 70s act sound, but everything on the label is great, and I love the fact that everything is so different at the same time.
Yeah, we really love those guys. I mean, they really have kind of embraced what's going on in the music industry right now. It's kind of a weird time, I think,
Sure.
or I feel, because like the traditional concept of a record label for guys like you and I is,
Yeah,
there's the guy in the back of the dingy club who catches your act and
yeah,
comes and catches up with you backstage afterwards. Is like, man, I really thought you guys were great. I got to get you into a studio,
yeah.
and that shit does not happen anymore. It doesn't.
Doesn't yeah. Even the major
No.
acts, are not major labels anymore.
Right.
Yeah,
So you've got guys like Pavement who are out here and they're really embracing like they're watching what's happening in the industry because it's happening in waves right now. Like I heard recently that they're going to start putting CD players back in cars.
I've heard
And if
that.
they
Yeah,
do that, yeah, if they do that, then CD is going to become a viable media again. And then people are going to start getting back into like some really interesting and creative packaging and stuff like that. And they're going to start moving physical units again.
yeah.
And it's hard even to move digital downloads anymore
Yeah.
because everybody just streams
See,
everything.
that's the thing. I'm an old school guy, and that's why like your album cover caught my eye because I'm like that just is so cool looking. I mean, I kids I think these days are missing the experience of going to a record store. It's kind of like what's a record store? Used to go and buy actual physical music, folks.
Right.
um, and you'd spend all day in the record store. I mean, I remember like first time seeing Number of the Beast, like just looking at the album cover, not knowing even what it was, and like I don't know what the hell that is, but I got to get it.
Yeah. I mean, and ask somebody, who's in their 20s what liner notes are.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
really.
And I get it. Like every generation has their own thing, but like to me, I would rather hold something in my hand. Even like you said, take the CD with me, listen to it on my way to work, and enjoy it or whatever on my way home, um, as opposed to the iPod pad or the MP3 back in the day or whatever new technology is. But I would rather have something hold in my hand. And I think even as an artist, it must feel great that you get the album, you can hold the CD at least in your hand, or if you ever release it on vinyl, it's like, wow, look what we created. This is our baby.
We've got vinyls now. We just got them in. They are great.
Yeah,
So
and
it's
yeah, vinyl made a comeback too a few years ago. So that is great because I'll tell you, again, I'm an old school guy, and so I've seen things where like Alice Cooper just re-released 50th anniversary of Billion Dollar Babies and get a lot of cool stuff with it. It's a little price. You got to pay $36 or something like that, but it's a nice package. I would pay for something like that. Um,
Well, yeah, because you feel like you're getting your money's worth. It's an
yeah,
experience.
yeah,
Like you're not just listening to the music.
yeah,
Listening to the music is cool and it's great, but you've got this great piece of art that you can hold in your hand, and you've got, lyrics or, some kind of
photos. Yeah,
insight,
yeah,
or some pictures of the artist or things like that that kind of set you in the mood
yeah, yeah.
of the album, that puts you in that headspace while you're listening to it. And I always thought that was great
Yeah,
when
and,
bands
and
could
it's
do
it's
that.
cool that vinyl's made a comeback too because, like I said, I hear people tell me stories that, man, I don't even have anything to play it on, but I just get this stuff to collect it because it looks so damn cool.
Hey,
Yeah,
to each
whatever.
their own.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But
But I mean, there's something about that though, because now you're getting into, you know, some logistics for bands that start to become a little interesting, because the production for a CD is going to be a little bit different, or the mix that you're going to want to have is going to be a little bit different to be optimal for a CD than it is for streaming or even like lossless MP3 downloads and
yeah,
things like that. And then it's going to be different again for vinyl,
yeah,
because you've got, so much more headroom there and with the vinyl, that it really starts to become a daunting prospect for an artist to say, hey, I've got all these different mediums to try and release through,
yeah,
and how do I find a mix that's going to sound really good on all of these different mediums.
yeah. But what you said at the top of the interview is right. I have a friend that works in the music industry, and he's telling me somebody told him the same thing, that they're starting to even put CD players in cars now in some of the newer cars because it's coming back. Yeah,
I hope so. I really do.
yeah, yeah.
And that would be so cool.
And so let people know if anybody's interested in the new album. You said it's available, I guess, on CD and vinyl. If people want to order that, what's the best way to do that?
Probably the best way to do that is to go to www.salemschild.com. Our storefront is right there on the website. You can order it right through the store, or even better, come catch us at a show. If you're in the United States, we're probably going to be near you at some point in January or February next year.
Okay.
And if you're in the, southeast or in the Texas, Oklahoma type area or whatnot, we're going to be there for 10 days with our buddies Pissing Razors in October.
Oh, wow,
So,
wow.
and we would love to see people at our merch booth. We love to sell merch. That's we kind of fancy ourselves while we're on the road as, traveling minstrels that write catchy jingles to sell t-shirts. You know what I'm saying?
Well, so with that being said, the tour kicks off in January. You guys gonna go into rehearsals anytime soon before that, or?
Well, we are in rehearsals now for the October run, which is gonna. I mean, that's we're taking it totally seriously, and we're really, putting a lot of effort into that run. But we're also kind of looking at that as, getting everything worked out, and all the kinks sorted out and everything for that January February run, which is going to be really challenging, trying to tour all of the United States in the dead
Yeah,
of winter.
yeah. With that being said, getting ready to go on the road and stuff. Has the band ever had the opportunity to play overseas or in any other countries?
We've had a couple of opportunities come through, but we haven't been in a position where we can take those
I
those
got you.
opportunities. I personally would love to do like Asia or Europe.
Sure,
You know,
sure.
I think that would just be an incredible experience. I've got a lot of friends in Europe that have said that they thought that we would do really well over there.
Yeah, because I'm sure you've
So it's
heard that
certainly
European fans, they really love their metal bands and stuff, and they're really like much more so. I've heard than the American people even. They just pay attention when the band's on stage and they give you 100%, their attention.
yeah, they're so much more accepting of,
Yeah, yeah,
you know, there doesn't seem to be as much gatekeeping going on in
yeah.
those countries as you
But
see
what's
around
sad is,
here. Like,
I think there's too much what's trending. You know what I mean? People that follow what's popular. Where like even when Motley Crue wasn't popular, I was still following them. I'm still a fan.
sure,
I'm not. I'm all of a sudden. Oh well, grunge is the thing, so I'm gonna throw out all my Motley Crue records. Yeah,
right,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
No,
And so
yeah,
that's pretty cool. Now, I was gonna say,
it's tough.
having not toured
Go ahead.
outside the U.S., I was curious. Um, you must see like from when people communicate with you like via the internet and stuff. Um, find out people are listening to your music in places that you haven't even stepped foot in. That's got to be a pretty amazing feeling.
It's wild, man. I did an interview just a couple of days ago with a guy in Scotland, and I just blows my mind that, you know, here I am, I'm talking to a guy, you know, half the world away,
Yeah, yeah,
and
that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
he's listening to, and his listeners are, you know, they're digging our tunes, which is that's just mind blowing to me. It's crazy.
yeah. I mean, you're
Just
sitting here talking to a guy and you're thinking he's halfway across the world and checking out our band's music. Yeah,
that's right.
yeah, yeah. That's pretty cool. Now, I was curious. So now that you're being a bass player, who are some of your favorite bass players, or you would say the people that kind of you would point to and you'd say, yeah, that's a great guy to follow, or that's I love his bass playing or his licks.
You know, I'm gonna have to go with Tony Levin. You
Okay.
know, the guy is just incredible, and he's played with everybody.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think one of the reasons why I like him so much, I mean, I got turned on to King Crimson at a very
There
early
you go.
age.
Okay.
And it was really like the Discipline era Crimson that really hooked me. Um, but his bass playing on that, and then of course the fact that he does the stick as well, the Chapman stick,
Oh, okay.
and
Yeah.
plays with those drumsticks on his fingers or whatnot in different places, and the stuff that he's doing with Peter Gabriel is just off the wall.
Yeah, he's one of those
Um,
guys too. I think that I know who you're talking about, but I think what you make a great choice in him because he's not the typical bass player. He's really doing his own thing.
right, he's
Yeah,
totally unique, and
yeah,
he's kind of blazing trails, and then then you've got guys like Les Claypool who again he's really kind of who plays like Les? You know, nobody plays like Les, and I think
yeah.
that's what
I'm
makes
sure
him
you've
great.
heard Les Claypool. He came this close to actually being the guy to replace Cliff Burton. I mean, could you
Didn't
imagine
they
what?
say he was too good
Yeah,
to be
yeah,
in
yeah,
Metallica? Is that what they
yeah,
said?
yeah, yeah. Could you imagine what Metallica would have sounded like with him?
Oh, I could only imagine. I imagine though that it would probably be very close to some of the stuff that they're doing with Robert, because if you look at their styles, they've got kind of that flamenco bass style approach that I think really just adds a very biting
Yeah.
edge to that Metallica sound. It's really cool. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a Cliff guy,
Oh,
but
sure, sure. Yeah.
I love what Robert's
I mean,
doing.
can you believe he's been gone as long as he has? I mean, again, very much, like with Randy Rose, he died tragically young. I mean, in Cliff's case, he's got like 3 albums only. But yeah, look at the legacy in that short lifespan he was able to create with three
How
albums.
many people did he influence that we
Yeah,
listen to now?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
that we don't even know about,
No, no,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
I think that's fantastic. I think by and large, and I had this conversation with another friend of mine a few days ago, that I think that's why on some subconscious level that musicians do what we do is we are blessed with this unique opportunity to create something that can outlive us.
sure, sure.
And, even if it's for one or two people, even if, when I pass on,
Yeah,
nobody remembers Salem's Child,
yeah.
my kids are going to have that
Yeah, they'll be
to
waving that
put
flag.
in,
Yeah,
to put on, and they can remember their old man. You know what I'm
They'll
saying?
be waving that Salem's child flag for hey, that's what my dad did. Check it out, you know. Um,
Exactly.
how cool is that? You know, another guy kind of as far as rhythm guitar players now that I always kind of dug was Malcolm Young of AC/DC. And what's very interesting about Malcolm is, I mean, he's not a lead player, but yet he was kind of he was all over the place, you know, with his guitar playing. And I don't know if the musician, if you can explain this, but on the last AC/DC album, which he didn't even play a lick on, but he was involved with the writing of the songs. Somebody else playing, you know, his parts on the album, his nephew. But I swear, it sounds like you'd swear it was Malcolm Young. Maybe it's because of the fact he was involved with writing those riffs, you know.
Well, I mean, you got to figure, if this is his nephew, he's
In the
probably
DNA.
learned how
Yeah,
to
yeah,
play guitar,
yeah,
from Malcolm,
yeah,
or maybe there's just some kind of family secret to that tone
yeah,
that just comes across, and yeah, it's completely unique to them. It really
yeah,
is.
yeah. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. But last question for today before I let you go, James, is
Sure.
being that you guys are getting ready to go on the road, how difficult is it with this great new album out, like to create a set list? Like, you just want to have a happy medium of featuring the classic stuff and a good percentage of a new album.
Well, the set list that we've kind of bounced around, that we've sort of landed on for October at least, has a really good mix of stuff. Like, we've got stuff all the way back from the EP that we did in probably about 10 years ago now. And then I'm sorry, probably about 8 years ago now. And then we've got 3 songs
Okay.
from The Sin That Saves You in the set list. And then the rest of the set list is all the new stuff.
And you
Um,
guys kind of you take a vote. How does that work, or is it a everybody kind of get a song put in the set list, or is it just kind of what the fans want?
well, I think one of the things that we learned when we were on tour with Doyle was that if you can get the crowd moving right away,
Yeah,
then you've kind of dug yourself a hole.
yeah,
I mean, it's the only way to really grab them is to get them moving right away. But at the same time, you've dug yourself this hole that you've got to maintain
that level.
that that level
Yeah,
throughout the rest of the set. So we really just, for this set, we took the approach of, all right, fine, we're going to come out of the gates, we're going to grab you by the throat, and we're not going to let go for 45 minutes.
there you go.
You know,
Yeah, there
so
you go.
that's the criteria for making the set was, if we are not jamming, then it doesn't make the cut.
Yeah, and I'd imagine sounds like you guys are very much a jam band. That when people come to see the band play live, they're not going to get it just like it is on the record. You're gonna get the live jammed out edition.
Well, I mean, you're gonna get some things that are different.
Yeah.
But with this album in particular, especially the new material, Johnny's got me doing a lot of singing,
Oh,
which
okay.
is which is
So
for
you're the
better or
Michael.
worse.
So another great legendary bass player reference here. So you're the Michael Anthony of the group. That great
Uh,
background
in
sound.
in
Yeah,
so many ways.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but oh gosh, that's funny. But yet he found out when we were on tour that I could do backup vocals.
Okay.
And so by about halfway through the first tour, I'm doing vocal warm-ups with him backstage before the set. And I start adding a little bit here and there and adding a little bit more here and there. And then he goes and he writes all of these layered, complicated vocal lines with like echoes and stuff like that are going on in this album. And when he's done with it, he's like, "Here, you get to do all the echoes and stuff."
Wow, wow. Now, and you're probably thanking God that he's a lead singer, not you. But when you first start doing that, I guess it's something kind of to get used to. But like at the end of the night, is your voice a little sore because you're singing a little more than what you're used to, or even more than some other guys because you're backing him up?
Well, most of my backups prior to Unbound were kind of like the very throaty, growly kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
like adding a little bit of like low end definition to the vocals. Whereas now I'm actually having to sing.
Wow, wow.
And I don't know why Johnny thought I could do it, but he does. He believes in me, and somehow we've made it work so far.
No, don't knock it
But
because, like I said, half jokingly, like on those classic Van Halen albums and Michael Anthony, that became a thing they were known for. That he was the background sound. I mean, and that's not
oh,
too
sure.
shabby. Yeah,
And I have absolutely always loved kind of like that layered vocal effect. Like Alice in Chains is hugely
sure.
influential on me, and there's very few bands I think that do it better.
Yeah.
Um, but the there was a we kind of trial run this set a couple of weeks ago at one of our local bars. We did a little release party with
Okay.
just like friends and family and things like that, and packed out this little pub and had a great time. Um, and we kind of ran through what will be make up the majority of the set list that we're going to
Sure,
play on
sure.
tour. And there was a section there of about 4 songs that were like from the new album. And it was capped off by a song from the old album that actually had a lot of backups on it.
Yeah.
And after that section, I looked at Johnny. I said, "We got to break those songs up."
Yeah, yeah. You're like, what do you think I do? I'm a lead singer. Yeah, but yeah, and Unbound. Like I was listening to the title track, and still quite a heavy song, but I call that heavy melody because maybe it's the lightest thing on the album, but yet it's still got a little bit of an edge.
I think so, and I think a lot of these songs with Johnny taking more of a singing approach
Yeah,
than he had traditionally in the past, I think they're going to come across as very aggressive musically,
yeah.
but almost very, I want to say, pleasant
I mean, the drum sound
vocally.
is heavy.
You know,
Wow.
oh yeah, he's
Yeah, yeah,
killing that.
yeah, yeah. Well, James, it's about that time to wrap it up. I want to thank you for coming on today, and this will be going up next week. I'll be sure to let Walker know when it's going to get posted. You guys feel free to share it, and I'd love to have you back one day. So take care, okay?
Absolutely, Jay. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Anytime. Bye bye.